bring the lion out. Bring the lion out. Bring the lion out. Hello, Scorpio. Welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Leo. This is going to be a great big bright one. This is happening on Monday the 6th of February at 5:30 a.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So it will be a dawn full moon. It'll be fullest at dawn, at moon set. So if you've got the inclination and you can set your alarm, get up out of bed early and watch the moon set and release what we need to. This is a big one, Scorpio. There's some houses here, there's some planets here that are in conflict, but also there's some great resolution to be found. So let's break it down one step at a time. First of all, Leo is very proud, very bright, very confident. There's something that Leo can teach us about self-expression and the unnecessary shame that can be surrounding that sentiment. We don't need to be ashamed to express ourselves, I think that one of the most beautiful things is to watch young folks, young toddlers, kids, express themselves with such vibrancy and such confidence, because hopefully at that point in their development they've not been told no, or they've not been told that they should be ashamed of that. It's as we sort of journey on and can get older that can sometimes be cause for some pit stops there. And so think about that sort of energy, that sort of confidence of like, I'm here, I am, this is me. And then have a little think about your 10th house. The 10th house is where we are most publicly perceived. The 10th house is could be our career, our legacy. It's the house of the chart that's at the top. So it's the most obvious, the most visible parts of ourselves. I like this for you, Scorpio. I think that this boldness in your public self, this lion child, can be read in you. And maybe at first glance, maybe there's something about you that is so lion-like socially, and that's not to take away any of your private vulnerabilities at all. But in the way that you express and the way you go about life, I like to see Leo in the 10th house. And that's only for Scorpio risings, so that's very specific for you. However, what do we do at a full moon? We release. So if there's been pitfalls, or if there's been things about your output, what you've been putting forward, what you've been sharing, or what you haven't been sharing, perhaps what you haven't reached or achieved so far, that's kind of got you in this space of feeling a bit, crestfallen. This is the moon to let it go. It's going to be quite emotional, so there might be some feelings attached to that, some big ones, but you can kiss them back to the moon. Now, so the sun is in Aquarius at 16 degrees, the moon is in Leo at 16 degrees, that's the full moon, explained. They're forming a square with Uranus in Taurus. Now, we've been talking about your 7th house for, gosh darn, nearly 12 months, maybe longer now, Scorpio. We had the eclipses there. We're going to experience the final crescendo of these eclipses this year. But Uranus is going to eject itself from Taurus full-time in 2026. So there's still work to do. When we think about Taurus, we think about the outer limits. We think about our ability to perceive the outer limits of the universe. And when Uranus was discovered, that idea of blowing that up, of being like, well, we thought that Saturn was as far as we could go. Nope, there's Uranus. The technology is developed enough that we've found Uranus. So that's why there's all of those significations of like rebellion, flipping the script, flipping the table. That's no easy energy to have in your 7th house, although I probably might say potentially maybe positive. If there's been dynamics that have existed in your experience up until this point that haven't been beneficial to you, you haven't been feeling heard or received or seen, then Uranus has been here. And it's been here, I think, since maybe 2019. I'll have to check that for you. It's been a while. And it won't leave until 2026. Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, I was just checking my notes. But I think about to 2019 to 2026, this revolution of the way that you operate in relationships and also the types of people that you hold dear may have really gone through the ringer. I bring this up because the sun and the moon are in square with Uranus. So your 10th house is in a difficult relationship with your 7th house. So there's something about the moon, the full moon in the 10th, that we're going to focus on with that ritualistic shedding, that we have control over in regard to your career. But there is a pressure, there is a point of tension with your relationship zone too. So maybe this is in some way with your collaborators. There's something about, it could be with people that you work with that ain't gelling no more. Or it could be you may have found yourself in the same types of relationship dynamics that you were like, no, I thought I learned this lesson. This is not supposed to be what's happening. This is frustrating. Those sorts of emotions could come out as well. So, yeah, sit with the idea of Leo ruling your 10th. That's not changeable, babe. That's kind of, if you're a Scorpio rising, that's the way that the die is cast. Let go of any criticism that you've maybe been too out there or too bombastic, or if there's been any criticism in the way that you operate in the world and what messages you have to share. If that's been sort of, if the girls have been talking about you, babe, like brush that off. People like, it's one thing that's really interesting to recognize is that, if you are in dynamic with people and the thing that bonds you together is criticism of others, if it's mutual hatred that you're engaging in, then that's probably a pretty toxic relationship that you can probably kiss goodbye. If the only thing that you have in common with someone, or if the thing that you find yourself time and again talking about is somebody else, or, I'm reminded of Kimmy. I don't know if you know Kath and Kim, but it's sort of like, that's what I hate. What do you hate? Like, if that's the dynamic, then you can kiss it goodbye. Because that's probably keeping you in some sort of place too, where you're sort of like, oh, well, this is my public perception, my 10th house. This is how I wish to express myself. But maybe I shouldn't because of little Kimmy in my ear hole, who's supposed to be my friend, telling me not to be up myself. Does that make sense? Or consistently bemoaning someone else for being up themselves. And then that's probably making you feel like, oh, don't want to speak out of turn. It's very Australian, so maybe, for the Australian folks that are listening, it could be that's specifically cultural too. We love each other until we get too up ourselves, and then we don't. We cut ourselves down. We can't help it. It's a cultural thing. We can help it, actually. It's a cultural thing. We can shift the culture. Anyhow, also another thing to look at is that Venus, the planet of pleasure and seduction and languid beauty and enjoyment, is in Pisces. And they're at 12 degrees, so they don't spend very long in each sign. Venus is quick to move around. They like to experience as much as they can in a solar year. But Venus in Pisces is really nice, supportive energy. Venus in Pisces Venus is so happy to be in the psychedelic sort of world of Pisces. For you, this is your 5th house. Pisces is how you express yourself. There's an intuitive force that guides you in your ability to self-express, Scorpio. And so Venus is there. And so this is a nice little story that we're painting here. You've got Venus on your side, encouraging you to express yourself. Venus is in square with Mars in Gemini. We know that story very well. We've been singing that story for months now. Hopefully Butch Mars will F off out of there soon enough. They will actually on March the... Where's my note? March the 25th. March the 25th, they'll be out of Gemini. But that's been hard, and that's been your 8th house, which is, the 8th is the house of contractual bond. I like the way that this reading is going, Scorpio, and I hope that it's hitting home, and if it ain't, you can always press the ejector seat. Because sometimes these messages come out and they're for specific people, they're not for everyone. The house system is, but this message is really making itself quite clear to me as I go along. You need to step away from folks that are judgmental, and maybe not so much judgmental of you, but judgmental in their energy. If they're consistently got something to say about this person or that person or the other person, you can pretty much guarantee that when you're not around, they're talking about you too. That's what they do. This is what people like this do, and it's, love and light and all of that, but it's their lesson to learn. It's not yours. You feel things really intensely, Scorpio. That's the truth. Your depth is shielded by that carapace of ice, remember? You've got so much that you know, and you know how painful emotions can physically manifest, I see that there's this brightness, water signs and fire signs maybe don't have so much in common, except for the fact the most obvious part of you is the lion, Scorpio, the pride child, the one that is unafraid to express, unafraid to use magic, unafraid to tell the world, this is my experience and this is how I see the world and this is what I do, this is what I create, here it is. If you're in company, and hopefully Venus in your expressive house can help you with this too. You can be supportive of some of this criticism. I feel that, in this manifestation of the reading, there's things that need to be put a stop to, if that's a sentence. I've got some beautiful cards that I'll show you. I got the Knight of Wands in reverse. I got the Hierophant. I got the Hermit. And I got the Six of Pentacles. This paints to me a very clear picture of everything that I was just speaking about. I really want you to step away from spaces where the continual relationship is bitter, where it's critical of other folks and their achievements or their, whatever it is, their expression. We all have them, or we all had them, those relationships that are bonded by mutual dissatisfaction. Those relationships in this process of evolution I've got my eye on that Uranus in the 7th, honey. That's why I'm being so forceful with this. They're the first to go. And I don't I'm trying to describe this without using judgmental language, but it's sort of like, I don't want to love and light you out of the room, positive vibes. It's not about that. The relationships that mean anything are the ones that are pretty confronting. You sort of see somebody in their depths and you sit there with them, you protect them, you support them, and you can trust that when you're in that way, they're going to be right there for you as well. If it's only coming together to criticize or to laugh at or to judge other folks around you, or you've got mutual enemies or mutual things that you're fed up about, or there's continual criticism, there's negativity, it's got to go. I see that this hermit energy is almost like this. You need to step away from some sort of dynamic, some sort of social dynamic that is unhelpful. Because there's this, I love this version of the Hierophant. I'm going to show you a little closer. It can be a hard card to look at sometimes because it is a Pope, I think, in the Rider-Waite deck. Although I will say I had a reading yesterday and I explained the idea that even though, I mean, the sentiment of this card is someone to go to for guidance. The Hierophant is someone who has devoted a lot of their time to spiritual practice and who has a sort of like a healer energy about them. In this card, you can see it's that incredible wise woman in the temple. She's channeling, she's receiving the messages, she's going for it. You can trust this one. There's no dogma attached to this one. The drawing of the Hierophant in the Rider-Waite is a pope, so it's like, oh, no thank you. No thank you, dogma. No thank you, Catholic oppression, Catholic guilt. No thanks. What I like to remember, and what I said to the person that I was reading for yesterday, was that the hand that drew the Rider-Waite deck was Pamela Coleman Smith, and she was a queer black woman living it up in her magical society in the 1800s, autonomous and gorgeous and free. And so her witchcraft is sewn into those cards. I'm going to show you your death card, your Scorpio card, drawn by Pamela. You can trust these cards because they came from the hands of a queer black woman. Stunning. So this card means something different, doesn't it? It's sort of like, if we look at this, yeah, I feel that there's a real integrity. So this is like, stop, hold up, check it. And with these two cards together, I see that there's an integrity, there's a sincerity to something about your work, Scorpio, that you need to really recognize as something to be proud of, to be Leo about. And maybe you can take it a step further once you let go of those shackles of potential criticism. I don't know why this reading went this way, but it did, so you're welcome. But that's your reading. Do head over to umaruby.com and get your birth chart read with me if you'd like to, Scorpio. It'd be lovely to meet you if I haven't already. Tips are always welcome at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. And I'll be speaking to you in 2 weeks for the new moon in Pisces, of which I can't wait for. It's going to be nice. We've got so much astrology to look forward to this year, and heaps next year, the year after, and the year after. So, pleasure to have your company. I love you. Be proud and enjoy the full moon. Release, release, release. Let it go. Take care, Scorpio. I love you. Bye.